as best as you can, in black and white, explain to me why there aren't consistent yearly fire inspections at Jamestown Community Center.
Jamestown Community Center is not what we consider a Title 25 structure for or occupancy for us to inspect. Typically, they have 100 or less people there. The Title 25 buildings are your personal care homes, your buildings that have large amounts of people, like our hotels and like our municipal building downtown. These are buildings that would have over 1,000 people occupancy load. The Civic Center, our schools, these are Title 25 buildings, and we assure that we inspect those every year. Some of our smaller occupancies that have low numbers of people, we inspect them either on by complaint or we periodically inspect them to make sure that they're staying in compliance. We don't have the staff to actually inspect every occupancy, every building in the city of Augusta every year. We would have to quadruple the size of our inspections division to accomplish that task. So we've kind of followed the state model, which is the Title 25 buildings, and those high hazards are the ones that we focus on, where you have a lot of people, where your possibilities of having injury to a lot of people could take place. We focus there, and then the smaller buildings, sometimes we refer to them as the mom and pops or the smaller occupancies, we inspect them periodically or on a complaint.
I want to hone in on resources and the number of businesses that you do have to inspect. Talk about how many businesses you are required to inspect, and how, if you add community centers, how much more you would suffer when it comes to resources, because you don't have those many people.
So in Augusta, there's approximately 9,000 or more businesses which they have business license for. Those 9,000 structures that we inspect when they get a new business license or while they stay in business. And then in addition to those 9,000, you have your school systems, your city buildings like community centers and other buildings, your municipal building. We have to do plan review and site revision for new buildings that are being built. And as you know, at the present time, Augusta is growing drastically. And so a lot of our resources and manpower are used to make sure that we're not holding up construction projects, that the builders are being able to move and develop, as well as inspect the schools, inspect personal care homes, inspect all of these Title 25 facilities at the same time. So with a Fire Prevention Bureau of about 6 or 7 folks, we would have to quadruple the size of that division to meet every building every year.
And I have to ask, because a lot of people will see this and say, but kids go there 5 days a week in the summer, and for 2 or 3 months, you have kids in there. Why wouldn't you expect a place with kids in there? Or there's an annual breakfast there, or a monthly breakfast there where people go and they eat and they're sitting there for a few hours. Why wouldn't you expect a place where you have people sitting there monthly, kids there daily? Why wouldn't you?
Well, we would. We want to inspect those facilities. We just have to, based on the resources that we have to choose where we think the high hazards will be. Where will someone most likely get injured? We have to focus on those first. Now, if we had more resources, we would love to be able to get them all, but we don't have the resources to do that. And as far as the facilities that the state has listed, all the community centers are not listed as daycares with the state of Georgia. The particular community center that we're talking about in Jamestown Community Center is business, the license inspection that says it's a faith tutoring and learning center. it is not considered a school. It is not considered a daycare. So it's not on the state's list because we're not the only ones that inspect daycares and nursing homes. The state does as well. That is not on that list of inspections because it is not considered that. And the breakfasts and the other things, we have never received a complaint that they're over-occupied. I've been to breakfasts there myself. I've never seen more than 100 people there. So with the occupancy load in that particular facility of 247, we have never seen where they have approached that number to where they were over-occupied. We've never seen them approach that number, nor have we ever seen a complaint. And so based on the resources we have, we really have to focus on the areas where we get the complaints. We know that they're over-occupying stuff like nightclubs and other things. We have to use our resources to focus where we most likely think the hazards are.
And you've done that. Have there ever been any complaints where you've had to respond at all? And I'll answer that and then tell me about 2018 when you did the periodic inspection. So there's this gap, and then in 2018 there's an inspection. Mm-hmm. How did that come about?
The inspection that was performed in 2018 was one of our periodic inspections where we decided that we would go and inspect all of our recreational facilities that the city of Augusta owned at that time. This was in 2018, and we inspected all of them at that time. And so as we move forward, when resources allow and the workload is not as heavy, then we will go back and get all of those facilities again. Mind you, it's very important that we inspect the facilities. We just have to use the resources we have to the best of our ability to get as much done as we can, and we have to focus that on where you're most likely to get an injury or your highest hazards is where we got to focus that.
The only time you're in Jamestown inspecting or any other community center is if it's periodically or if there's a complaint.
Right. If you're not a high hazard, if you're not what we consider a high hazard occupancy, then either we get a complaint or we periodically choose different places to do those inspections, and that's when we do those inspections.
Okay.
Your high hazard facilities get inspected annually.
Have the 2018 complaints been addressed?
Yes. In the report that was done in 2018, when the inspection was done, if you take a look at the bottom of that report, where the inspector went and did the re-inspection, it will tell you that the violations have been addressed.
Okay. The only issue that came up in previous years, I believe in 08 and between 08 and 2012, was a hood being added to the stove, and that was addressed. Can you explain that?
Right. So in 2009, there was an inspection performed there, and Jamestown Community Center was informed that they needed a hood system for the stove that they had in the kitchen. In 2010, they again were told, you cannot cook on this stove because there is no hood system. In 2012, a hood system was installed, and a Type 1 hood system was installed in the Jamestown Community Center. And so that center has had a hood system in it for over 7 years at this point.
Okay. And you mentioned that, I believe it was it 2012 when they were given a certificate of occupancy, but pretty much told not to cook because of the hood?
Right. That was in 2010. They were given a certificate of occupancy, but they were told you cannot use that stove until you get the hood system put in. In 2012, they got the hood system, and the hood system was installed, and an inspector went out and inspected the hood system and checked it off. In 2018, when they went back out and did their inspection, the inspection noted that the hood system was blue tagged, meaning it was good to go, and said that the stove needed to be clean, and you needed to have a private company come in and do the hood system company come in and do another inspection of the hood system to update the tag. A month and a half later, the inspector went back out, did a reinspection, and those violations have been corrected, and it was good to go.
Okay. If you had your wish list of increasing your inspectors, what would it be?
If our goal is to assure that every facility has an inspection every year, then you'd have to quadruple the size. I would need about 18 or 20 people that just did inspections. And that would run a price tag of probably over $1 million with salaries and benefits. That price tag would be over $1 million.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anything else you want to share? Thoughts about all this? Of course, it just got caught up in the bigger scandal, if you will, but just any changes that you would make at all? Do you think City Code needs to be changed at all? Or?
As far as, the City Code saying that we do periodic inspections or inspections based on a complaint, it would be better to increase the number of inspections, but that could only be done with increasing the resource. It could only be done with, like I said, doubling or quadrupling the number of inspectors that we had that could inspect every occupancy in the city every year. And a city that is our size, I'm just not familiar with one that does every occupancy every year unless they have a huge staff to do that with.